Log 30. This is the 30th log. 30 weeks has passed since I've started this new endeavor, the Stonemason, and honestly, it's been it's been a time. I don't know it would have taken this long, and I'm not planning to end on a particular week or particular time frame in terms of how many logs will this take. But overall is feel like a milestone in my mind at least, and I'm excited and at the same time quite hopeful of what is going to become the stonemason. Regardless, I'm recording this on the 17th of May. It's a Friday, and this is the earliest I have ever finished on a Friday, I think. Today's work was to finish the bits and pieces of the face that I've done yesterday and sort of prepare myself for the last and final turn of the design, which is going to be the tiles behind the figure and the overall shades and shadows that it's going to be needed to bring conceptually all the elements and details that I've placed in this composition together. Now, initially I thought this week would have been the last of this design, but given this week have started a bit depressive for me, there's been some life sort of events that caused me to reflect and at the same time be affected by it in some type of way that I needed more time to understand it and still process it through my art. So where I was supposed to sort of do this thing and not on this specific day, I ended up spending more hours within my thoughts and elaborating sort of my monologue into the painting design. Still think that what I'm doing is paintings. No, I'm not. So it's been a very emotional and reflective kind of week. And on Thursday, I was supposed to take sort of like a break, but I decided to sort of go on with the face. Now, as I say in every log, the face of the main figure is something that I take very seriously, and I take sort of all my effort and time to make in the concept of perfection, which anyways cannot be touched, but to reach the ultimate level of what my abilities can do. It is a different face from the previous one, and every sort of figure has its own unique twists. This particular one had, again, a unique twist that sort of introduced two techniques. The one technique is to introduce the sort of textures and shades that I was using in introducing the base statue-like faces in across all the border of the compositions. Now that was like technique number one with its sort of arsenal and difficulties. Now the second technique was the fractures and deliberate sort of eradication of the perfection and introducing sort of an emotional response to what this figure is about. And initially, it was sort of divided quite methodically and in a ratio that made sense of having both of them at the same time. But as I've designed it and I've seen it in front of me, I realized that doesn't really work that well being balanced in the initial concept of me wanting to have this nice smooth rock statue like textures with the rough and textural and visceral immersion and implication of time that was displayed on this statue. So I opted out in sort of changing the ratio a bit, having sort of 60-40%, 60 being the nice smooth surface that is sort of seen amongst the statues that the stonemason was creating, and the 40% coming in reflecting his emotional and what he's trying to say with this composition. And I did that on Thursday, and it taken quite a toll on me, given that it was a ramp up of what I was feeling before and the amount of time that I needed to use my concentration to do this and not to fall into the habit of me over exaggerating myself and really completely feeling sort of drawn by its energy and hitting this creative wall that I was trying to overcome, and all the things that I was doing wrong before in the earlier part of the stonemason that I had to pay not only by time but by having to make them more creativity using my creativity. So I knew the dangers. I knew that I could sort of rip the page if I try too hard. I could smudge the actual light source and dampen the whiteness of the page. So if you were to start shading on a piece of paper right now and you erase it, the brightness and the sort of softness of the paper begins to lose its organic color, and it has either established lines if you did it too hard, or it has a smudgeness that when in time to put the nice and raw and brilliant white that comes and introduces the light and the shape and texture of this object that you're trying to depict gets sort of jeopardized. Obviously, there's work around this. You could use a white pencil and all that, but I wanted to make it as raw as possible, especially in this design. So I'm only using graphite, which is the lead that pencils have, and an eraser. So I knew the dangers, and I've done quite well. I've changed my mind a couple of times between the ratio and sort of like fixing things around, but I was doing it very softly and very deliberate, that I didn't have to either stumble on myself or my many what ifs, which is a big struggle when it comes to you fixating on something, because the what ifs in fixation time is I would say the downfall. Given if this was digital, and let's say I've done the face and I wasn't sure about the eyes or the nose. In a digital setting, I would be like, okay, let's push this design as much as I can because I can save it right now and load back to the previous design. Now, when you're hand drawing this, you cannot go back. So there is this dilemma of, do I stay with what I have and always wonder the what ifs, or do I completely follow this and regret or potentially regret the result? And I wanted to take risks. I am the person that I was playing it quite safe in flow. Given my lack of abilities and my lack of confidence, as I reached the last painting, I gained confidence and I decided that going fully through something and not half asking it in a way, I'm not asking, half asking, whatever. My mind is just sort of like thinking in design. Um, I realized that within this new theme, I would like to really implement sort of these techniques and really challenge myself in getting both better and fully seeing things to the end. Hence why at the beginning I was trying to do that, and it resulted with paper issues and having to work around that and all these struggles that I faced. And leading up to now, when I see something and I feel the potential of it being better, I go for it. But at the same time, I know that before I make that decision, time needs to pass and I need to disconnect. So on Thursday, after I reached noon, I said, okay, we have this design in a good sort of motion. Let's leave it here and spend tomorrow in finalizing the very few shadows and tweaking this. Now, the reason why I didn't push to finish the design tomorrow, aka today, is because that I really wanted to give just the 10 to 15% that the phase needed to get it to the level that I felt it could become, without having to know that, oh, I have all these other things that I need to do, and overwhelm myself. So I just gave myself 4 hours to do this 15%, and it was a beautiful experience, because when you extend yourself and your time in doing something that would have otherwise taken 10 to 15 minutes, you are sort of forcing yourself to see this again, reevaluate it, and sort of using your introspection, ask yourself what this is for you. It doesn't have to be 4 hours of you actually doing physical work, but it's you considering, thinking, sort of trying to foresee how this will come along. Because when it comes to faces and backgrounds, right, any figure you create, in needs a life, a world to exist. And when you just do a silhouette of a person with white background, blank, you create a person anywhere. The background suggests infinity. Now, when you introduce a background, you add shades, complexities, you add a world for them to live. So having to create a face and then knowing that the background will be, in this case, tiles, stones, textures, how will the face work with all these textual parts behind it and the suggestion? And I needed to sort of comprehend that I cannot make something 100% if I don't have the 100%, the bigger picture. So I did it to the level that it stands out beautifully on its own. And when the background comes, which is going to be Monday, it's going to take its final turn, its final form, if you may. So yeah, the design is pretty much finished. It just needs its fine tweaks and its last sort of turn to finalize and make this beautiful. I wanted to sort of see the other designs with this one. Usually when I get to this stage, I take out the other designs from their folders and I spread them out and I see all them together and see sort of my progress and see where it came from, and sort of humbling myself with the techniques that I've learned. And if I wanted to apply this technique that I've learned, the previous one is sort of making a mental note of, do I need to revisit things? Is this on part with the previous one? Is this too good in line, and showing and showcasing how there's a big skill gap, which, you know, if I'm trying to depict the same room, essentially the skill gap should only be shown in the stonemason's work versus the environment. So I had a conscious sort of moment witnessing that, and I've been happy to say that there's some few things that I need to touch upon, some new techniques that I need to sort of apply to the previous ones, some shades that I learned to how to implement, and me being more courageous and less sort of uptight about things to really come back and introduce that. But it's been a bit of amazement, will be a word, to see the amount of work that I've done since November up until now, and to see them all spread out together. and knowing that I have one more design for this bundle to close and to move forward. And I caught myself sort of staring at the faces, staring at the textures, the lights, shadows, and inevitably the compositions. I found myself drawn into the moments that I was reflecting these designs from, and what was happening during my life when I was bringing these designs into play since November, and how the first design came to be, what I was feeling, sensing, experiencing, and how it is reflected into the composition, and how during towards the third design, how that completely changed, my mindset changed, and I went in a completely emotional and very, I wouldn't say spiritual, but I would say very reflective and ruminating, if that's how you can transfer that word to sort of explain that I was ruminating a lot, a ruminative sort of angle. And I remember after the finalization of the third design, I went back and I took a break and I saw the previous ones and I updated them to like overhauling their textures, overhauling some of their faces, completely updating my skills. And it's been a blast, to be honest. And the fourth design, the one that I did before, is one that stands out the most to me at the moment, because it was the the step after me knowing and establishing this is going to be something important to me. Because if I were to take you back in the beginning, I thought this was going to be 6 months for the whole three arcs. And as I was going forward and my life, my emotions, and how I was feeling about this story and how the world was reflecting the importance of this story, I began taking different turns, different decisions, different outcomes in the end. And I look at this at the fourth design and I see my courage and my inclination to always welcoming the unknown. And reflecting on the fifth design, again, it comes from the difficulties of the previous ones, but showcases something that makes it stand out. And moving forward now, I have one more design. I need to reevaluate the reference first. So I would say around Wednesday, this design will be finished, design number 5. And I'll sit down and reevaluate design number 6, maybe change some courses, change some ideas. And then I would have liked to, before I even begin on design number 6, the final design, I would like to sort of update you guys on what I've been working on so far, what has been my numerical amount of work, and how these 30 weeks, and by the time that I will do it, 31 weeks, has reflected the amount of time that I've worked on through this big monolith of the story, the Stonemason. So expect next week's log to have sort of a bit of a visual connotation of showing how many designs I have done, how many are left, and what I'm going to be doing in a very rough schedule for the next remaining months before my estimated deadline. Now, I am hopeful excuse me, about my deadline, but I'm not too concerned by it, meaning that if I need more time, I would more than likely accept and allow myself to take more time. I'm not forcing myself and I am not limiting myself to deadlines, but I'm giving myself a realistic outlook on the importance of this. So within the next 3 months, things are going to happen in my life that are going to be disrupting some of the schedules, and I'm going to be switching up to bigger scale designs and obviously fewer, three. And with the knowledge that I've gathered from this six, they're going to have an amount of detail and a good foundational preparational work for them to come out as smooth as possible. But such as life, they will be challenging and they will be introducing question marks that I haven't already answered. And primarily, this is what I'm hoping and this is what I'm expecting. I'm expecting the beauty of the unknown to come and sort of introduce itself to me, and me sitting down and having a beautiful endeavor in answering whatever it may ask of me and wherever that might lead me. So, in the perfect world that I like to think, sort of the time schedule of this would sort of finish, I would say around November time, I will be done with all the drawing parts of the design. But then I have to reevaluate everything that I've ever done so far in terms of design wise, and I need to fill in the gaps of the close ups of the designs that I need to do close ups of. Now, those ones aren't difficult because we're talking about bits and pieces, and as I described before, having a figure in a blank background is much easier than having a figure in an actual background and having to introduce the connection between the figure and its world. Now, with the construction of taking just the close-up object and just making it bigger, making it more detailed, that is just a prop, and props can be very quickly to design and very easy to come around. So I'm hoping sort of November will be that time, and towards the end, putting everything together, and by somehow being able to launch this on the 25th of December. Now, prior to that, I will be doing the mock up. Now, the mock up is, as I explained, a controlled experiment of me choosing a design out of the six that I've done so far and having this interactive approach that I was showcasing on log number 9, which is basically look at the design. There's going to be a text that sort of sets the scene, and you have to click on things and see how that it will interact and what feedback you will give me on how that interaction felt. Did it feel mechanical or things of that nature? I really want to see how the audience goes around and finds the object that I've laid in plain view, and some of them not so much. Some of them are quite hidden, and if you find the hidden ones, and if the plain one, if the ones that are so easy to spot are beginning to become stale and that type of approach. Now I'm very confident on the interesting aspect of this, but I've learned from my catalog feedback how important it is to get as much broad and varied response as I can, so I can think of things that I wouldn't even have thought of before. So that will be my plan. On the next log, I am gonna have all the designs that I've done so far, the 5 designs in their compositional shaped sort of squares that I have been introducing and showcasing on some of these logs, sort of saying how my trajectory and my motion will be in drawing which shape and in what order. So I'm gonna have the compositional sort of shape pieces of each design, and I will make a poll in you guys deciding which of the 5 you would like to see first, and I will use that as my base and my first sort of design to create the mock-up and the control experiment of. So what will happen, you would see inevitably this design and you would experience it with a very controlled sort of environment, and me having to run you through on what's the concept behind that you obviously won't be able to experience, and what this moment when you click this is sort of going to elaborate for you. So yeah, log number 30 was a milestone, as 20 and as 10 was, and I'm looking forward to see the other 10. Honestly, I I would think that the last, or should I say, from the period of the log 20 till now, I bet many things have changed in my mind and many things have fluctuated along the way. Moments of euphoria or moments of complete disaster and frustration. And primarily it is how anyone focusing and engaging in an artistic experience goes. I don't want to sugarcoat the experience or showcase the inevitable struggles that it can bring. And at the same time, the diligence that it needs for whatever you see of any artist out there, or whatever you hear, that it, even if it might be a 3-minute experience or a 7 or a 10 or a 1 or a 2, there's been weeks, months, or even years of work behind what you're witnessing. So with that, I am going to conclude this log, and next week is all about the actual finalization and the review of design number 6 and the accumulation of all the statistics of work that I've done so far. So it's going to be half physical work, as in physically drawing, and the other half sort of doing storage keeping and writing that down. Thank you for listening, and let's see how this work will treat everyone.